everybody to Pivot Point of View. I'm Destri Millsap, and my co-host Becky was unable to be with us today, but we do have a very, very special guest. I first came to know this guy as he was doing YouTube roping instructional videos, and what I loved about it was, one, he was doing GoPro videos. I thought those were super cool, and he was very technical, and I was trying to take my roping to the next level, and the way that he broke it down and explained it was just awesome. And now he has been the marketing guy for the Pro Equine Group, which deals with Helomatic, Cactus, Fastback, and Resistival hats over a decade. He works as the executive director for the Western Sports Marketing Equine Network, who owns World Series, USTRC, Pink Ruby Buckle, the Sorting National Championships, the Patriot, NCHA, NRHA, NRCHA, NHSRA, Time Event Championships, BFI, Kojo Roping, a ton of stuff. They got a lot of stuff going on, and he's got a hand in it all. And we're super happy to have him on here. You know him as Dru Stew, the one and only Dru Stewart. Thanks for being on here.
No, thanks, Destri. I appreciate a lot of that. I'm really sorry that I probably screwed your roping up for life back in the day.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it's been a fun ride. That was kind of a fun deal doing those videos. That's probably the question I get asked more than anything is why aren't you doing the Dru Stew videos on YouTube anymore? I get literally asked that all the time, and I'm like, man, maybe I should fire the old GoPro back up.
Oh yeah, man, they were great. And after I met you, it took me a little while to realize who you were. I just didn't realize I was in such a presence of a celebrity that
Oh,
I looked up
blah
to.
blah 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 blah.
I think we were at that roping, and I was like, "Hey, weird question. Did you happen to make YouTube videos back in the day?"
I think
Yes.
it was up at that roping, wasn't it? When we started chatting about everything up at it
Oh, it was
oh
Cowboy Junction in Bonita.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I met Dru. Actually, the first time I met you was at the high school finals at the Can
Mhm.
Cookers. Shout out to them. They took great care of us up there.
Yeah,
Always
they
fed
did.
us amazing food. And we got to know each other a little bit. And I love talking to you. Your energy is contagious. I mean, anytime that I'm around you, I just get so excited about stuff. You always have a big energy vibe about you. And so we were talking, and another thing that I respect about you is you're a true cowboy. And so the
Hey,
knowledge that you have,
let's go pretty loose on that deal.
look, hey, you've chased wild cows in Montana. If you've chased a wild cow in eastern Oklahoma, automatically cowboy, because I don't care what anybody says. It's a different type of wild. Whether it's not as wild as the Montana cow or the Texas cow that they've chased, it's a different type of wild. And it's like rocks, trees, no one has pins. If you chase an Oklahoma wild cow, you're a cowboy, period. I don't care what anyone says. It's wild.
Well, I tell you what, so funny story. When I first moved down to Texas, like in 2000, I guess it would have been 2002, somewhere right in there. This guy that we were working for had, I don't know, a couple thousand acres, and he had a bunch of longhorns just turned out. And they were like, there was like 2-year-old steer, well, bulls that had never been cut, and then calves on the ground. And there was just like a mix mash of whatever. He had no idea what he was doing. He just owned the property. And his name was Bob Minyard. He owned a bunch of grocery stores and stuff in the Fort Worth Metroplex. And anyway, so I went out and roped and tied down a bunch of them just out in the field and went got them in the trailer. But I had never ridden through mesquite trees before. I had no idea that trees had thorns. Like we have pine trees in Montana, and that's it. Like a pine tree. That's as bad as it gets.
Besides
And
bears. I mean,
bears. Yeah. But I remember riding through the mesquite trees and I got a thorn in my lip. I'll never forget it. And it was like a long thorn. And I was like, what is this Texas crap? Everything's bigger in Texas.
oh yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, that was I was like I was now then I because I used to see the pictures of the cowboys or the guys that have like their cuffs on and tapaderos on their saddles and always wearing their chinks or their chaps. I mean we just put our jeans on and go cowboy. Yeah, not so much. I understand why it's a little bit different down south for
Yeah, you're
sure.
like, why are these guys so excessive about their wear? Turns out is
I totally get it. Totally get it. Yeah.
yeah. So now you currently live in Wagner with your wife Sarah. You got two
Hmm.
identical twin boys, 16-year-old daughter, and your son Isaac plays at Texas Tech, starts at outside linebacker. So you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on all the time. And somehow you manage to do all this cool stuff in the equine industry. And another big thing that sticks out to me about you is your innovation. And you use that knowledge and you innovate, and everything you create is just so awesome. And your ability to think big and organize things is just second to none.
Man, I appreciate that. You know, there's guys out there and gals that that I look to for sure. Like, you know what Randy Bernard did with the PBR and and the American and everything that he touched. There's guys like that that really push things to the next level. And I've always, I don't know, I guess it's the creative side of the brain or whatever, that if I could never be an accountant, I could never do the same thing over and over and over again. I get bored too fast. And so the goal is to always, kind of push the limit, and working with the companies that I've worked for, back with Pro Equine and Cactus Saddle Resist, all of those companies, they were industry leaders for sure. And then now working, I work directly under Connie Gentry, who anybody that's ever picked up a team rope knows who the Gentrys are. They are the ones that founded the USTRC back in the day. They are the ones that then sold that company and started the World Series. And Denny and Connie runs the Equine Network on the Western sports side of it. She's the hardest working woman I've ever met in my life and extremely intelligent. Now I know why Denny was so successful, and it was because of Connie. Like, yeah, 100%. Denny had the ideas, but Connie made them happen, is how that whole dynamic worked. But and Danny Gentry, speaking of innovators, like, there's a reason the World Series came around and the USTRC. Like, you can't go create something if you're scared. You've got to have the ideas, and then you got to have the balls and the wherewithal to go execute. And that's what's cool about these high level operators that figure out how to execute these ideas. We can make cool stuff all day long, but you got to figure out how to execute it. You got to have a great team behind you all the time. You've got to have other people that kind of share your vision. They don't know what the hell you're doing. You've got to have people that trust you, and like, okay, we're going to go do this, whether it be, the video stuff that we do, I'm just very lucky, Destry, like very fortunate and blessed to be around a bunch of cool people that uh-oh. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just listening to you, brother. Can you
Man, I don't yeah, yeah, I just lost your video. But anyway, so yeah, it's been very cool. I've always kind of been an innovator, or tried to be an innovator. I don't want to call myself an innovator, but like, we just try to do cool stuff. Like, going back to the Dru Stew videos, those first videos, that was when GoPro first came out. And my goal was, I want to be the first guy to put team roping with a GoPro. Speed Williams had his stuff. Ricky Green was doing all of his stuff. And, I'm pretty confident saying I was the first guy that did team roping with a GoPro on YouTube. Like, really confident in that statement, because I looked a lot when I was doing it. So I always just try to, we try to do new cool stuff. I don't think that the Western industry reinvents the wheel. I think that we take what's already working. And a lot of times in life, it's not, you're not, very seldom do you come up with a new idea. You just take a different idea that maybe hasn't been done in your industry. You tweak it a little bit and you make it work for what you're doing. So that's, I don't know, I just like making cool stuff, like, that's really it. That's the secret. Make cool stuff. Hope it works. And I have failed a lot, a lot. So,
Well, a lot of successful people have, and it's no accident that you have the success that you do. And you talk about execution, and it's not just in, I've been following you for quite a while through the Dru Stew stuff and everything else. And it's just no accident that you've gotten yourself to where you are today through that execution with your communication, your drive, and ability to execute. And it shows in other areas too, as I've gotten to know you running the 100K Trail Ultra. I mean, that takes a ton of training, dedication, and execution to be able to do something that is that physically demanding as well. To be a father, to be, who you are in every other aspect takes a ton of execution and dedication. So really, it's no accident, whether you believe it or not, that you've had the success that you have.
Well, I appreciate that, Destry, and that 100K Ultra is probably like what's funny is I'm known for the Western industry stuff for the announcing and everything, and but that 100K is probably personally the most badass thing I've ever done. You know what I mean? Like you and I talked about it a lot, and I've had three ACL surgeries, and you helped me with two of those. Two of those were back to back, like within a year to the date. And those were not running induced. They were from jacking around wrestling with guys, and one of the ACL surgeries failed, and then I had to have it redone again, which made my third ACL. So my knees are awesome, but yeah, that deal was something else, and I think that was probably, oh, I don't know, damn sure the hardest thing I've ever done, and not just the day of the race, but the leading up to it. I ran right at 900 and some miles, which now I look at my two buddies that are in it with me, and they're running like 2,000 miles a year. So I'm like, it's I didn't even run nowhere near what they're running now. That Phil Benedum, who was the executive director of the Pacific Coast Cutting Horse Association, and he's a big time judge now too. He retired from the cutting horse industry, and then now he's judging and working more shows than he did when he was executive director for I think 15 years in California. But that guy's running like 10 miles a day, 6 days a week. And he's ran, I don't know how many 50Ks, a bunch of 30Ks, a few 100Ks, and he's ran, I think, 200 milers. For those people that don't know the math on 100K, 100K is 62 miles, and it's a long freaking way in a day, but 100 miles is another 40 miles. And he's done a few of those, and it's doing that stuff, Destry, is just really, really, you want to talk about taking yourself out of a comfort zone. And when I say out of a comfort zone, I mean, yeah, it's not comfortable because it hurts, and training hurts, and you have to build up and you have to stay hooked. My weakest thing about me is I don't want to say giving up, but like staying hooked. I fight my diet really, really bad. I've gained 40, 50 pounds back since that just 3, 4 years ago. And my willpower on that is very, very tough. But when you decide to go do something like that, every single day you have to do it, or you won't achieve the goal. So every day you've got to run a minimum of 4 miles, like every day, 6 days a week. You take one day off and rest. And then when you get up on the high mileage days, you got to run 10, 12 miles every single day. And there is no part of it that's great. You get a runner's high and stuff, but there's very, very many mornings you wake up and you're like, I'm not going to do this. Or you put it off all day long and you put your headlamp on at 10 o'clock at night and go bang out a 10K, and you just have to do it. So that is, I don't know, that's part of my life that nobody really knows about, that I put a little bit of it on Facebook and stuff. And you'll see that I've pulled way back on social media, and there's a few reasons for that. I just don't have the time, and I don't really care to have a huge following. And maybe I've had a lot of people say, "Hey, you need to do that," but I'm more worried about my kids, and yeah, I just don't really care. I don't need to have 100,000 followers and check my Facebook every day to feel good about myself. So, but that is definitely, the 100K was definitely one of the coolest things. They give away these little pewter buckles. It's funny, they give belt buckles away, and it's this little shitty like silver pewter buckle that's worth about a buck 385, and it's one of the coolest buckles I have. Like, I know I can go heel 4 steers, get lucky, or turn 4 steers that are roping, but that one meant a lot, you know. Never in my life have I had to work that hard for a little buckle, you know. So
Definitely. And anybody that is not a runner, all the runners know that it's not just the physical aspect of running. Running is so much mental. First of
oh
all,
boy.
it gives you complete mental clarity when you
Hmm.
run, and that runner's high is a real deal. Like, I started running during COVID, and I'd had a knee surgery or two myself, and I almost appreciated running more after my knee surgery than I did before.
Hmm.
Before, running was a survival skill, and I was
Yeah.
definitely a quarter horse, not a thoroughbred. And then during COVID, I started running hills, and I, get up to running about 4 miles 3 times a
Hmm.
week, and I'm like, man, I feel more sane now just because it,
Yeah.
it was just such a good release to go work your stuff out mentally. And
Yeah.
that 100K stuff, man. I mean, like I think I drive 26 miles to work one way every day. And then that'd be like me running here, running home, and then running back to Claremore to the grocery store
Hmm.
or something. And,
Yeah.
I don't know how much time did it take you to complete that?
13 hours and 20 minutes, 13 hours and 19 minutes, something like that. So in my pace was a 13-minute mile is how it all ended up just working out. But yeah, it took right at 13 hours and it was, man, you talk about the mental side of it. Like you get anything over, even the marathon runners say like 18 miles for something about 18 miles is just like when you're training for this deal. I still remember my first 18 miler. I did multiple 20 milers. And then I remember my first 30 miler. And after my first 30-mile run, and this is just like literally how I would do it. I had a running plan, but then I had like on a Saturday, I'd be like, well, I better go see what it feels like to run 20 miles. And it would just suck. Like, it'd be good, but then, about like mile 18, there's something about it. I think it's the time you're through all your glycogen stores, like you get into like I learned a lot about the body.
Yeah.
You get about mile 10 to 12, you're about through your glycogen stores. Mile 18, you're depleted. Like glycogen, it's all that extra sugar you have stored up in your muscles and that, and it all gets released and so you're done. So now you're just running on whatever fuel that you have and your blood sugar's basically gone and you start kind of tanking and then your body has to click over. You know way more about this than I do, going from the aerobic and anaerobic side of things. And it's a weird deal, but it definitely creates clarity, man. One thing about just on the health side of it, like going and running anywhere, and you got to do it for about an hour. So for most people that's about 4 miles. Even if you walk a little bit, go if you go trudge along for an hour, you're going to go about 4 miles roughly, give or take, even if you walk a little bit. So you go do that for an hour and it is going to clear your mind more than lifting, more than anything else, just because you burn through that sugar. And if you do that for like a month, it's unreal where your mind goes on that. Like it makes you feel so much better. And that's what pisses me off about me right now is I know that, but yet I've gained all this weight back because I've just been lazy and not haven't done it. But man, when you're running all the time, it's a great, great feeling. And then the other thing that it does is in this I was really struggling. I haven't been roping very much at all for the last 10 years. Like I bet I rope 50, 60 steers a year total. We used to do that in an afternoon. So the other side, and I have this deal where I can't get past the third round. And that was from years ago when I was roping with Tyler Cornett. I would just, man, and I was healing good. I was still an 8 healer at the time, but I would rope a leg in the third round every time. And I just had this mental block that I'm like, I still have it. And so running was my way. Like I thought about that all the time. Like you get to that mile 18 or whatever, that's the third steer. You've got to get past it. You just have to get past it. You have got to mentally get by it. And it makes you feel so good when you achieve those deals, for somebody that's just starting out running, you go run and walk your first mile and you feel good about it and nobody can take that away from you. you know.
No.
So you get that first mile down, you finally run your first mile, and who cares, it's a 13-minute mile, and you just trudge along and you're dying, and you get it done, and you're like, holy shit, I can do this. And then you go to your second mile, and you go to your third mile, and after a month you're running 4 miles 3 4 5 times a week. And then you go to the longer distance or whatever, you know, you take the time to do it, and it just feels really, really good. And then the other thing that it would do for me, and I've talked to a couple guys that have done this, is you go out and run. Let's say you get up in the morning and you run first thing, and let's say your job's stressful or you're having some tough stuff go on at the house or whatever. When you go run and get anything 3 4 miles or further, and that's the hardest thing you're going to do today, so it makes everything else easier. And in your mind, it just, like, you don't get pissed as easy because you're like, man, I already did. Destry can call me and tell me that my leg's going to fall off. And I don't really care because I already ran 4 miles and it was way harder than that. It mentally puts you in a space where, you know, things are going hard at work. And that's what I would do. I would be like, man, nobody, it's going to be, I just ran 15 miles and you're going to bitch at me about my graphics. So what? You know, exactly. I mean, seriously, you're like, whatever, bro. I don't care. Like, you know, it's weird, but it does that to you. And it kind of gives you a silent confidence. You know, it's like you watch those Navy SEAL videos and stuff, like make your bed in the morning because it gives you confidence that you did one thing this morning. Well, go out and run 10 miles at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I guarantee you're a different person for the rest of the day. Guaranteed. 100%. And for anybody that says I can't run, that this is, I'm going to get on a soapbox for a minute now. Who thought this was going to be a running podcast, right?
Yeah.
So
We talk
don't
about
tell don't tell me about your knees being bad. Don't tell me about that. Don't tell me that, oh, because that's what I hear all, well, my knees are bad. No, your mind's bad, bro. Your mind's bad. Fuck
Amen.
your knees. I'm sorry. Zero sympathy from this guy on your knees. Zero. Like, your mind is bad. Get your mind right and your knees will be fine. There are very few, you're a physical therapist. And maybe you might want to put a disclaimer on this, but
Disclaimer.
90% of please do not listen to this podcast if you have bad knees, because Dru is going to give you horrible, horrible advice. I
Oh,
just
you're
I don't believe it. You need to go do something. And yeah, your knees hurt, but guess what? The David Goggins mentality out there, like David Goggins is extreme, but I will tell you this, it's gonna hurt, but it goes away.
yeah.
It goes away. And if you stay, you think your body, like every little, oh, really, like, push through it. And then in a week, and you'll be so proud of yourself when you, that's the thing. I'm not telling you to go tear your body up, but when you do push through it, then you look back and go, man, it really didn't hurt that bad. And then your body's getting stronger. Very few people that go jog are tearing up their body. Am I wrong? Like, it really, like, you know what I'm saying, Destry? I mean, like, of course, talk to a guy like you first. Are you really tearing your body up? No. And the health benefits way outweigh a little bit of soreness in your knees. Or, you know, I called you, my IT band was terrible. It hurt and then it gets inflamed. Well, come to find out, I just need to do some squats. I need to get my butt in better shape. And I'll be damned if it didn't go away, you
Yeah.
know?
Okay. First of all, we haven't even talked about really what I've been doing since I saw it. Because I saw you like when I just like first started
Mm-hmm.
treating my own clients. Is I mean, you were on the front side of that, and
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
yeah, you didn't even know. I mean, I've been treating athletes for years, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then, but I was like, man, I want to help more people in the Western industry. I want to help
Mm-hmm.
people that aren't just like high school or college or professional athletes. Like, I want to be able to help these guys that just want to stay roping, just want to stay active. You talk about uh, people that complain about their knees and say they can't do stuff and or they're too old or whatever. And that is a major thing that Becky and I talk about all the time. You talk about David Goggins, we talk about 75 hard on here. That's been our
Mm-hmm.
whole thing since January. We've talked about it multiple times. Becky's doing it. We have a whole Facebook group.
Have you?
I mean, we talk about it all the time. you don't have to accept that. And that has been Becky and I's main mission this entire time, and whole reason for starting this deal is we don't accept that, and we don't want other people to accept that, oh, this is just your life, or oh, I'll never run because I got bad knees. Let me help you with those knees. Let's figure out why those knees are bad and how we can get you. How can we do something? It's like the rich dad, poor dad. How can I afford it? How can I get better?
Yeah.
That's the approach that we have. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that completely lines up. We haven't even talked about this
We
at all.
haven't talked about any of this stuff.
Nothing.
Like,
It
yeah.
completely lines up with our mission. And so I just love that you said that. And then also, um, you're right. You had, ACL surgeries. So you had every excuse in the world to be like, man, I can't do this. And it affects you when you rope. And honestly, the time that we met each other in person was pretty timely, because, and I believe everything happens for a reason. I'm very
Sure.
careful about all that, but it was pretty timely that you were going through that. And then all of a sudden, here we go, come across your path. We're at that roping. And well, you asked to add on. I'm like, dude, Dru Stew is asking me to add on. You betcha. And so we add on whatever, and then we start talking about your knee and how I can help you with that. And so then you came and saw me. I helped you for a while, and if I would have known some of the things that I know now, like we have to be honest about it. You were having to drive over an hour to me to get this help, right? Had we been doing what we're doing now with our app and our virtual visit stuff, that would have been a way better setup for you. But at that time, I wasn't doing it, and it bothered me. So I'm like, man, how can I help more people? And then a few years later, the app idea comes down the pike, and is more. I might have been, within the next 2 years after that, is when that started, and that would have been a way better setup for you.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're doing that, though. I mean, that is one thing that this health and wellness and the running deal is something that, like, the Dru Stew videos and that I would love to go back, and I talked to you about this, last night, or the other day when we were just chatting about it. Like, I feel like that's probably the side of the industry that we're missing the most right now, especially like going back to what I do day to day, dealing with the World Series team ropers. So, everywhere you go on everything team roping or whatever, everybody says how jacked up the numbers are and everything. And there's going to be a point to all of this. So everybody complains about the numbers and blah, blah, blah. And everybody's numbers are off and this, that, and the other thing. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. Like 95% of the numbers are right. There's about 5% of them that are off. And it just so happens that 5% bitches a lot. So it is what it is. It's a great system. But here's the reason that we feel it. Okay, there's a reason behind everything. The reason we feel these numbers going up and down, and this is going to come full circle, I promise you. So we've got a bunch of guys and gals that are from the Jake Barnes and Clay O'Brien Cooper era, right? They were going up, the number system starts, they were going up, and those guys, that's the baby boomer era, right? And so they were the 5, 6, 7s, 8s, all the way up to 10s for a long time, and they're starting to come back down. Those guys that were even just 5s and 6s are starting to come back down because of their age. They're in their 60s and 70s now. So they're starting to come back down, but they still know how to catch. You don't forget how to catch, you just don't do it as fast, right? So, I mean, I would take a guy that is 65, 70 years old that used to be a 7, 8 header every day because he knows how to catch. He probably knows how to win too. And he's dropping down from the 13, open 15, 13, 12 rope, and he's dropping down into the 10, 11, 9 roping now, and even that person, just like Guy Allen Heelan, or, like guys like that, these people know how to win. Even if they swap ends, they know how to win. So anyway, you've got them coming down. Then you've got and even like me, I was an 8, I'm a 6 now, and heaven forbid I get back in shape and get a good heel horse. So I'm going to come wear your asses out. But anyway,
There's
so
factors that go into the numbering system. I think that's why
abs-
it's so misunderstood. I mean, first of all, you talk about horse, like that's everything. And especially with the horsepower how it is now and the competition how it is now, can't just back in there on an old swamp donkey and drop it to the knot every time. Like, you're gonna have to be more than a little bit mounted. And especially as you get older, you got to get mounted. And that presents a whole new problem. We haven't really talked about how it affects the ropers much on this podcast. We've talked about primarily the barrel racers as they get older and the horsepower,
Mm-hmm.
how it changes their game. And that might drop them down a D or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
in team roping, like catches them instead of heels them on the first hop or drops it too
Mm-hmm.
close, whatever, because their body doesn't allow them to do that as much, or they just
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be able to win.
Yep.
But it takes a major effect on your body to be able
Yep.
to stay with those horses even.
Yep.
Talk about,
Yep.
and not to mention if you're dealing with, like, say your shoulder and your knees are not the same and your body composition is not the same,
Mm-hmm.
whether you gain weight or reaction time isn't the same, it affects all of that as you age and progress through life. So that's where the numbering system actually saves guys and allows them to be able to compete to such a high age, and have longevity there, is the numbering system. And that's why it works that way.
Yeah, knows how to win. Knows how to win. And those guys are, coming down now. But then there's also young guys, and when I say guys, I mean guys and gals both, and young people that are coming up. And so now instead of like the cross being at what used to be the 11 roping, where the numbers meet, if that makes sense, the guys going down, the guys coming up. So now you have fives and sixes that are open and the 11 are open. Well, now that cross is just going down a little bit. So now, the 9 roping is the biggest roping, and the 8 roping, the title fights 8 roping here a couple weeks ago in Arizona was like the biggest title fights. It was huge. I can't remember 700-800 teams or something in an 8 roping, but anyway, so now bringing it back full circle to what you guys do. I think what we're really, really missing is that group of people that are my age, from 40, I'm 45 this year, from 40 to 60 or whatever. Yeah, we focus on our horsemanship a lot, and we focus on roping the dummy and all of that stuff. There is a need right now for the actual, what do I got to do in the gym? What do I got to do at the house with my bands, or getting out and running? What can I do to maintain my body for the longevity to ride my horse? And I truly believe, and this is the pot calling the kettle black because I'm so out of shape right now, that I think that is such a huge hole in our industry right now, is keeping our shoulders good. I'll tell you, everybody has seen that video of me coming off the Riata horse. And what people don't know is that's right after one of my knee surgeries. And I no excuse, I came off the horse and I didn't put her in a good spot and blah, blah, blah. Oh, and the guy that I was roping with is a dude that I met that day when we were up at that roping.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was I can't remember his name. Big guy. He was riding a roan horse, and he hooked me up with a friend of his, but it was a guy that I met up at that roping that day.
Okay.
And that's where I bought my sorrel heel horse, was that day. I was trying that sorrel heel horse
Oh,
that
I
day
didn't
that we were up
know.
there at that roping. Yeah, so yeah, this is all fate, Destry. It's all fate.
It really
So it's all fate.
all your own horse.
So yeah, so at that roping that day up in Oklahoma, I met I met a guy, and he hooked me up with a dude who heads pretty good. We roped in Riata. We're seven flat on our first one, and she cuts me off. And the thing is with my knee, and it's still like I've had 2 ACLs in my left knee and 1 ACL surgery in my right knee. And like my left knee, like, just, that's the foot you get on with, right? So you put your left foot in the stirrup, and man, like, still to this day, this is something I'm going to talk about, with you off. Like, my left leg is not as strong as my right leg, not even close. And I didn't do all the physical therapy that you told me to do. I'm in all 100% here, so. And when I ride now, when I come around the corner heeling, I do something with my legs, and it feels like it's pulling my hamstring every time, still to this day. And my balance is off because of my feet and my leg strength. And and I quit. I went up after the deal happened at Riata. I was like, this will never happen again. Now, and I mean, it's me. I don't care that everybody saw the video and whatever, but I was like, man, I just feel terrible on my horse. And I haven't fixed that problem yet. It still is the same deal. But I don't think uh, we all have weight trainers and stuff, but anyway, the long and short of this is what you guys are doing. There is a huge hole for this group of people that are in their 40s plus and even younger on what to do to stay in shape and keep their legs strong. And you and I both know that our core strength, everything else, if you don't have a strong legs and butt, like that's where it starts. That and it's proven that your leg strength leads to a longer life. And losing that leg strength and that butt strength and then up into our core is so important. And I don't think that people are really targeting that, let alone our shoulders. I mean, I don't know how many guys are having shoulder surgeries, but every one of us has shoulder problems if we've been swinging a rope over and over and over for 20, 30 years, so I think I think that's something that our industry really needs to look at, not just the horsemanship, not just roping the dummy, but how do we keep ourselves going? Because we all love this sport. So how do we keep it going for longer and longer so that we can continue to play longer and our body doesn't fall out from under us?
Um, you know, first of all, we kind of take it to another level more than just keeping it to where you can compete, but also so you can help your horse and help them
Hmm.
stay more correct because that'll keep
Sure.
them here as well. So if your body and I've done some working with Dr. Kim Rasmussen, the horse osteopath, and more Norman that she'll work on the horse, I'll work on the rider, and we keep finding these similarities, like the rider being locked up in their left SI and their horse being locked up in their left SI, all the way down to some visceral stuff. And it's really fascinating how much our bodies affect our horses. So if we fix our bodies, we can potentially make our horses feel better, give better cues, and keep them
Hmm.
healthier and make them be more correct. So next thing I want to talk about is you talked about your hamstring killing you. Well, you had ACL surgery. What do people like me know about the hamstring? It's the main stabilizer of the ACL. All right. If it's not firing correctly, and it's probably going to be one of those things that needs the most work as you come back along with your quad. But sometimes the hamstring, for whatever reason, gets overlooked in its importance in riding, which you said you fell off balance. Well, the hamstring says right here, says it helps stabilize you and balance you in the saddle. It also helps with stability of the pelvis and keeping you in pelvis neutral so your
Hmm.
hips don't tip forward. And it helps you create momentum as you come out of the box. Now, we had a girl on here that is from Fort Hayes that talked about how she had left knee problems and she's a header. And so whenever she would head, her horse would get quick on her because her left knee wasn't able
Hmm.
to hold her horse up, right? And then she
Hmm.
got on the program, and now her horse is staying underneath of her and giving her that extra jump so she can handle cattle better. For
Hmm.
her healers, she's got a better look. I mean, everything is so much more smooth, she said. And so, in healing, like being able to hold your horse up through the corner and everything,
Hmm. Yep.
but you don't have the hamstring strength, so you feel off balance. No wonder you fell off, bud. I mean, people can laugh all they want. They're a top hand, so it's obviously funny to the rest of us in the moment that don't know everything about you. But from what I know, I was like, I bet his knee didn't hold him, and I hope he's okay.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I remember you and I talking because it was right when I had just been cleared, I think, and I remember being worried, like, God, if I pulled this son of a gun again, you know,
Yeah,
like and it was not the coming off the horse at the end because it was like off the wall and how it all kind of happened. But I couldn't sit down and ride that. I couldn't help her. I've always prided myself on being able to jump on a young horse and go heel steers. I've
yeah,
always been able to do that and be able to hold one out, show them the deal and run in and climb on anything and go do that. I've always really had pride that I could do that. And I've lost a lot of that. Like, and that I was like riding up over the top of I still remember how it felt because I'm like I'm not in the saddle. There's a difference between being in the saddle. You can be in the front of the saddle, but you got to be riding your horse in the saddle. I was on the saddle and not riding her. And she's that mare, you kind of got to show her she's an ex-cutter. So she's, they're kind of watching. She cows a little bit, which means she counter arcs into the steer. and they do that stuff and it puts your body in a funny position. Well, if you're sitting down riding them, then you can kind of, you can push them and you can bring them up to that steer. And I did. I'm on top of her, kind of leaned forward and just put her in a terrible spot. And it was all because of that. Like still to this day, it was fun. I'll tell you a funny story from just a couple weeks ago. I was down in California, and at a buddy of mine's memorial rope in Temecula, and we were celebrating Bob Avila and this other buddy of mine, Robin Moore, and it was a Robin Moore benefit, and so I was roping and I was announcing, so I move all my runs to the end. I got five. Everybody got five runs. It's kind of a round robin deal anyway. So I climb on this buddy of mine's sorrel horse, Kelly Barker's mare, and she's pretty green, but still good enough to go heel on. And I'm just loping around, and I feel my hamstring, and I'm like bouncing in the saddle, like my timing's off at a trot. Like, really, I've been riding horses my whole life, and I can't even like ride a horse at a trot. And I ride over, and Corey Cushing's there, and I ride over by the heel box, and he's getting ready to heel, and I'm like, dude, Corey never stopped riding horses. Like, and he's laughing like he would even ever consider something like that. Like, where'd that come from, Dru? And I'm like, Corey, can I borrow how to ride a horse for like the next 8 seconds, because it's so bad? And everything that they turned, I healed by 2 feet, but it felt terrible. That was just because I spent so much time on the dummy, and I have decent hand-eye coordination still. But I mean, it feels lucky, and the horsemanship side of it, my goodness, it's terrible. It's just terrible. And it's amazing. Like, this deal, my eyes went at 40 years. I had fighter pilot vision until I was 40. Then my eyes went, and now this deal about riding a horse, like the mortality side of this starts setting in. Like, age is a real thing. We feel like we're immortal, and goodness sakes, we need to take care of our bodies if we want to enjoy this stuff and help our horses. Because boy, I ride like a water balloon right now. Like, it's horrible.
Well, I mean, well, and helping those babies especially, it's different if you're
Mm.
on a more forgiving older horse that's
Yeah.
solid. You're just released off of knee surgery. Maybe the knee's ready, maybe it's not, and you're on a young horse having to help them. It's hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard. And but the good news is the more that I've studied and learned this stuff, because with my two knee surgeries, I came back and it just felt awful. And I was
Yeah.
just not myself. It was frustrating. And I was like, this is not acceptable. Like, I do not, it sucks the joy right out of it. And I was like, man, I'm not the only one that this affects. And so I've got to figure this out. And then as I studied more, I learned more things about like why I don't have as deep a seat in the saddle after my knee surgery. Well, my left hip is actually the problem. And as a header, that's terrible because, I broke this left ankle a couple times too, but and so the mobility there isn't as great as it should be, which affects my hip. So what I learned was, because I didn't have the hip mobility to stay deep in the saddle and stay with my horse, I was getting
Mhm.
looser and kind of cheating to this side. And anytime that I leaned to this side, instead of staying in the middle of my horse, I obviously pull my horse over there, but I would watch the video, and my hip being tight, my left leg would kick out. And eventually my horse forgave me for cheating this way and being on
Mhm.
this right leg and being comfortable. But as I went that way or turned to rope my steer, my left hip would kick my left foot out. I'm not putting as much pressure through my left stirrup just because I don't have the hip mobility to. It's not a strength issue, but like compensate and readjust and all this stuff. So I'm not just leaving my healers out hanging to dry, which are making it way more difficult for them. So they don't have success either. So there's just so many things that I've learned throughout this process on how a guy can actually get there pretty quick on
Mhm.
being able to be normal again.
The flexibility side of it, as much as the strength, like, so, after you and I talked, and once that, I want to tell you thank you for Destri. Destry and I don't talk very often, but he's like break glass when needed all the time. I just use him to death. So my daughter rolls her ankle real bad. I have to pack her off the volleyball court at a tournament here a couple weekends ago, and you're my first phone call. I'm like, man, I don't, her ankle's swelling up. I'm like, what, there's no sports medicine person at the team. So Destry FaceTimes, we look at it, and I want you to know I really appreciate that. And but I've been meaning to talk to you about the mobility side of it, probably more than anything. Like, I feel like that's where the strength will come, but I'm a very, very not flexible person. And I'll tell you what, Destry, like riding up to the catch pen on a head horse and having to lean down and take my rope off, like it like locks my hip up. It locks my quad and my hammy up. Like it's the craziest thing, like leaning down to take a rope off. And if it's happening to me, I'm assuming it's probably happening to a bunch of other guys that we're just not going to tell anybody it happens, right?
Right.
And that flexibility, I think that is almost more important than the strength because I have zero flexibility. I stood on one of those angle boards the other day, like what you have in the physical therapy room, and I stood on it like so my toes are up, not toes down, and just like I can barely stand on that board with it just at a very slight angle without my heels coming up and leaning forward, and it feels like my calves are going to tear off.
Yeah.
Like I've zero, and then like I look like my wife gets on it and another friend of mine stand and they can get it where it's almost like really, really sharp angle and they can stand there with their heels touching. And I'm like, I can barely get on it, like just a little slope. And it just tells me how tight I am in everything. So everything I do, lifting my leg up to get in the stirrup, yeah, it's because my pants are tight, but it's also because my my muscles and everything are so tight. And I feel like that's probably the one thing that all of us guys maybe overlook is not just the strength and getting in the gym, but that mobility side of it. And the older we get, the tighter these muscles get. That's for sure.
Well, and so that's why we came up with our eval that we have, our virtual eval, and we can do it in person as well, but we do a full body eval that
Mhm.
evaluates strength and mobility and, a bunch of different things, balance, and
Mhm.
we identify exactly what areas are the issue and we go right at them. So then it's a straight line and you're
Mhm.
only attacking the things that you need to attack. It's not a shotgun approach. It's directed right at your issues. And now we've become more event specific. I've had some goat tires that I love working with them. That's pure ACL prevention and performance.
Mhm.
Love working with them. Would love to work with a calf roper. I think I could do amazing things for them as well.
Mhm.
And just team ropers in general. And what I love about being around you is going back to those videos. You're so technical. And so you know how to describe stuff and
Mhm.
how it's supposed to feel, what the correct technique is. And if you're having a restriction or a weakness or whatever, the way that you explain it, I would be able to go right at it and understand and be able to open that back up for you or get it stronger or whatever. I would know right where to go, just how well
Mhm.
you explain it. So it could be a very dangerous deal. And we've done things where, we had people send us videos of their runs so I can see how they look at full speed. And I would love to collaborate with somebody who as technical as you
Yeah.
on something like that. So I do the eval on the ground and then also get another perspective of them on the horse going full speed. So, I mean, the more set of eyes, the better, in my opinion, and be able to see something with your experience that you pick up that I could help them even more.
You know what we should do, Destry, is we should get with Coleman and and talk to him about, and I don't know if he's got his own physical therapist or anything like that. I don't know anything about that side of his life, but I do know Coleman is very good speaker and very outgoing, of course, and he's right there close to us. But he's going to get in the timed events next year, and he's 40. It's like becoming a Navy SEAL at 30, like so he's going to have to work on his steer wrestling. And I guarantee like Coleman and I fight the same problems. We're not tall and lean and skinny guys, so that blowing a knee is going to be on his mind. I mean, it's going to be like it's 100% going to be, whether anybody says it out loud. You're going to worry about it because you feed your family with your head rope. You're tripping really well, and but now you've got to go tie calves and bulldog. It might be a deal. It would be cool to reach out to Coleman because he's 40 years old. And, on the preventative side of it, like how do we keep you loose? How do we do our best to make sure you don't pop an ACL or tear something? Because every year, right before the timed events, every year somebody goes out because of that. And what you don't want to do is take them away from that primary event that feeds their family, you know. I mean, the 100,000 is great, but the 200,000, 500,000 that Coleman can make in a year jackpot and then rodeoing is way more important than that 100,000 at the timed events, you know. So
Well,
that might be good. We ought to talk to him about that.
yeah, I mean, I would love to help him out with that. And you never, I mean, a lot of these guys, they, everybody has a guy, right? You
Yeah,
know,
everybody has a guy. Yeah.
so, but I'm available and
Hmm.
willing to work with anyone, or if they're just needing a new perspective on stuff, like, man, this still isn't getting short up or whatever, be happy
Hmm.
to take a look, and you're right, he's so close there. It'd be fun to help him, be able to go rope with him, be able to see how he does stuff and describe stuff because he's a high level guy. And
Yeah.
yeah, it could be really incredible. And you're talking about my most favorite event of all time, the timed event championships. I've
Hmm.
been going to that since I was just a little guy with my Papa Vern, who just passed, and he went to about all of them. I mean, we talked about it. He went to about all of them except one or two up until last year.
Hmm.
The whole entire time they had it. So it's my favorite event, and it's a true cowboy deal. I mean, true all around tough grind. You got to do all five of those timed events: head, heel, calf rope, bulldog, steer trip. I mean, that's not everybody's forte, and you got to be cowboy to do it. And man, the toll that takes on your body. So when I was in grad school, I worked with the sports medicine team one time, and it was way back like 2013, I believe it was. And
Hmm.
and some of them guys that come through, and this is what I love working with rodeo people is they're so laid back. Like they'll get done roping and whatever and come to get checked out and they've already stopped at the beer stand. Maybe they brought you,
Yeah, they got a Coors Light.
maybe they give you one, maybe they don't. Maybe they're in enough pain that they're already, prescribed themselves two Coors Lights. It has happened before. And so they're just a really fun bunch of guys to work with. But you're right. Like that is a little, and it's not so much anymore. I mean, there are guys that work out and go hard and everything.
Hmm.
I mean, Paul Tierney, when he was training for it, as he got up in years, and even when he was a younger guy, I mean, he had this crazy training regimen, and people would go see him to train for the timed events. So it's
Hmm.
not exactly a lost thing, but it is extremely important. You had to go through the training yourself. Talk about that.
Yeah, I did. So it was my goal in life to compete at the timed events, and it was before I lost all the weight. I was still pretty heavy. I was around 240, 250. I was heavy, and that was around 2014, I think. And I wanted to get in, and I knew the guys over there, and I called them and talked to them. My background, I went to the college finals roping calves. I was not a great calf roper, but I made it to the college finals and could hold my own. And heading and heeling was always there. And I steer wrestled all through high school and college just to get points and be on the team. And so, but I'd never tripped before. So I went to the timed events, fell in love with the event, wish I would have earlier in life, but so I was 34, 35, somewhere in there. And I reached out to the guys at the timed event and I'm like, hey, I sent them my bio. I said, I want in. And I'd always had this deal, Destry, like, I was known as the announcer guy and I'd won a little, I had some success jackpot, never had any success rodeo and never like, I won fourth in the first round at Salinas Heelan one time and like thought that was the best thing ever. And then Matt Roberts and I made it back at Cheyenne the first year they had team rope and I was heading for him. And so like I've never done anything rodeo and I never even made the Montana Circuit finals. So I was never a rodeo guy, but I was a jackpot guy. I could, catch them. So I was like, man, this is my wheelhouse. I don't have to be fast. I can kick across them and catch them. I can run one down and head them. Calf roping, same deal. Like I was like, I'm probably going to be the guy that noses all my calves, but that's okay because they're always big as shit.
Oh my God,
And
and
oh,
eaters.
they're huge.
Now,
They're huge. And then get by on the bulldog and then get by on the tripping. Like that was just kind of the deal. And the bulldog and steers usually are on the nicer end. They don't want to tear everybody up in the steer wrestling, But so anyway, I got in. I called them and they're like, we'll do a wild card deal. And I'm like, yeah, use it as a marketing deal. The Dru Stew team roper guy, like let me do this. So I was actually at the Mirage during Vegas, walking out to go to Cowboy Christmas to go to work at the Cactus booth and my phone rang, and it was a lazy, and they're like, "Hey, just want to let you know we're going to let you in." And then so that was in December, and I'm like, "You're not talking about this March, right?" And they're like, "No, no, 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 no," because I was like, "Well, there's no way I can be ready in, you know, 3 months." But they're like, "No, we'll let you in the following year. So we're letting you know that you have a year to get ready." And the deal was that, like, post it on social media and let everybody know. And so I started doing that. I lived right down the road from Jarrett Blessing at the time. We were in Decatur in Paradise, and Jarrett Blessing, I've got a set of twin boys, Carrie and Jarrett, and Jarrett's my middle name, but we named Jarrett mainly after Jarrett Blessing. And I don't know if he even knows that, but because that dude is one of the coolest cats I've ever met in my entire life, like one of my favorite human beings. And so Jarrett came over and he's like, "Hey, man," and he's so funny. And he's like, "Hey, man, how about you help me with my healing and I'll help you with tripping?" I'm like, "Okay." So, I mean, he's great. He's won everything there is, like Pendleton, Cheyenne. Like, he's just awesome, awesome steer roper. And, him and his dad made Trevor's horse. Like, they're just the kings of tripping in my mind. I mean, like, down there, just so great. So, like, we took a tough calf one time. This is just a funny side story. We're like, we needed to make a sled, and I had a tough calf. And Jarrett comes over and he's like, "Hey, man, you think we could, like, put some plastic horns on that thing?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, we can." So I drive up to NRS in Decatur and buy a set of plastic horns, like the old muley horns, the
Yeah.
white ones. And we
Yeah.
put it on this tough calf. And Jarrett goes out and, like, because a tripping sled needs to be pretty heavy. And we go out and bust this thing, and it tears three of the legs off. And, like, we just absolutely destroy this this dummy. And it was hilarious, man. It was so funny. But it was fun. I had a head horse that we were teaching to to trip, and he was showing me that. And man, I struggled. I had the weight deal and the flexibility deal. Like, getting off a tripping horse was scary to me, like really, really scary. So would, like, get hung up in the saddle a bunch, but then would go and I'd tie almost every day. I had a red and white paint steer that I tied so much. We put the rope on in the chute. He would literally walk out to the end of the rope, turn around, and lay down because he knew I tied him so much. And, got decent at tying. And when I say decent, I mean bad, but decent. And then got back to roping calves a little bit. Roping calves was funny. I tied Daniel Holler and, and, uh, Tyler Cornett were living with me, and Lonnie Pierce at the time. She had won the national championship in the goat tying and the college deal. And Ty Daniel had a calf horse. And so the worst thing that could have happened to me is I back in the box. I hadn't stepped off the calf horse in, like, probably 10 years at the time. So I back in the box. We got some calves, and I run out and I tie my first calf in like 9. Like, it was smooth. Went out, help him step off, run down flank and time. And I'm like, shit's easy. It's
That's it.
easy. It's like riding a bike. So the next one I back in the box, and this old horse at Ty Daniels he would get a little tight. Next one I back in the box and I run out, hook us, like, he kind of shorts me a little bit. So I rope right at the end of it. So I'm kind of bowed out a little bit, but I'm like, well, I'm just going to get off with my slack anyway, because I'm an old hand like that. And I step out there and I hang my foot in the stirrup. Second run, second run. Like, it's fun. And I think we have it on video. That's what's funny. I think we have, like, and I'm just like, so then the third run, I go out and I hang my foot in the stirrup again, but not as bad. And I run down and I time like 19, like, true, like, good run at the timed events. But bad thing was in, like, a 200-foot arena, not a 400-foot arena. So then my fourth run, I'm like, I'm just going to stick my toe in the stirrup so I don't hang my foot again. And I'm like, this will be fine. So I back in the box, run out, rope this calf, blow my stirrup, like, right in the middle of my slack. So then the first thing, like, I remember seeing the bell boot and the sport boot, because it's just like, so I hit the ground twice and fork it, and the guys are laughing. I'm like, Jesus sucked. But yeah, you think you're quite a cowboy, and then reality comes up and gets you. But man, it was a lot of fun. I spent a year training. I'd go over to Tufts. Tuff and I got to be pretty good buddies, and I had a whole level of respect. Love Tough Cooper, hate Tough Cooper. I don't really care. What I know is how hard he worked out. And we would go over to the arena at Roy's place when he was still living over there. And Tough Cooper had just like a bench and some weights set up over in the side of the arena. And he would work out with his jeans on, jeans and boots. Like, I don't know if I ever even saw him in tennis shoes. And this was at the very start of this. And I told Tough what I was doing. And Jimmy Lee Caldwell was over there as well, that big guy that hung out with Tough. And we worked out a lot. So I'd go over there and we would work out, and I'd watch Tough do what he did. And it was intense. Like, it was intense, flipping tires, rolling tires, flanking and tying calves. He did this drill, like the best drill I've ever seen. I thought I'd seen every drill tying calves that was known to man, but he did this drill where we had this Charlet calf that didn't matter, but he was big and soggy, and he would tie him on like a 6 foot rope. So it's like tying to the post, but way different. So you turn around and you put both hands on the fence and nobody on the tail. Like, usually you have a guy tailing the calf for you, you know? So you'd have both hands on the fence. You'd say go, and you'd turn around and just take one step and you're at the calf, and you'd flank him and tie him. Well, after you do that, anybody that's ever tied calves, those calves are tired and they're not going to stand up. So after you flank and tie him like 3 or 4 times, that calf is roped out and he's just going to lay there. So after you take your string off, that calf's just going to basically kind of be just sitting there. The rope's not really tight. We have it half hitched over the Honda, so it's not like he's choking or anything, but he's just sitting there. Well, now he's dead weight. So he's laying there, and Tough's like, go. And I'm like, well, I got to get him up first. He's like, you get him up when you run down the rope. And remember when everybody used to say, oh, Tough just outdraws everybody because he would he could outflank you because he's stronger than you are.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And his left hand was so strong, and his right hand, he could make those bad calves look good on the flank. And it's from drills like this. And so now that calf is down. So you're looking away from him, both hands on the fence. He says, go, you turn around, you take one step, and your left hand, you've got to use your legs, and you've got to get really, really low. So now you're like squatting, right? And you're grabbing your left hand and you're squatting, you're using your whole body. You got to pick this calf up. And we're not talking little ones. Like, these were big roped out, soggy calves. And you got to pick him up and get him up, use your body to get his body up, and then flank him and tie him. I'd never seen that before. And between that and all of the stuff that Tough did, and then I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Jimmy Lee lived in Brock. I lived in Decatur, and there was a badass little gym in Brock, Texas. So I would get up at 4. I'd leave the house. I'd take a scoop of pre-work on the drive down there. I'd pick Jimmy Lee up at his house, and we'd go to the gym. And I did that for about a year, and I didn't lose. I lost. I remember Travis Woodard called me, and he's like, dude, for working out as hard as you can, like, your diet must suck because you're not losing very much weight. And he was right. My diet wasn't great, but I got strong. I got stronger than I ever have been. And Jimmy Lee and I'd run about 2 miles on the treadmill, and then we'd lift like I've never lifted before. And Jimmy Lee's like, I remember him telling me when we started, he's like, you ain't going to stay hooked. And I was like, oh, motherfucker, you don't know me. And excuse my language, but, so stayed hooked and lifted, and then every day at lunch, and it would be 105 out, in the summer, and I'd go out and tie that paint steer, and then we'd rope every night, head and heel, and we had a bunch of steers we leased, and it was awesome. And then in November of that year, I got a call from Dan Wall. He had taken over the Lazy E, and he called and told me they weren't going to let me in.
Oh,
And
man.
it freaking crushed me. It crushed me. That's when I gained a whole bunch of weight, and not saying that my whole life revolved around the timed event, but it did. And it affected me mentally. Like, I wanted to do it. And I was scared to death, Destri. I was so scared. Like, I had numerous conversations with Luke Branquino. Luke and I are pretty good buddies. And I'm like, dude, I need you to come and help me. I talked to Quinn Kessler, and wanted Quinn to help me up there because he's such a stud, and we were kind of buddies. And so yeah, I was ready to do it and scared, I mean, I was definitely nervous. The bulldogging made me more nervous than the tripping, even though I'd steer wrestled a bunch before, but the bulldogging made me more nervous than the tripping. But yeah, they called me, and I put a post out on Facebook this last week about that, and Dan Wall commented, yeah, because I didn't use his name. I said, yeah, they pulled it from me, and Dan Wall commented, and he's like, yeah, I'm the guy that said no. And but yeah, it was awesome. But I don't know, going full circle to the beginning of this conversation, Destry, guy, man, don't be a pussy. Like, go try stuff.
Yeah.
Like, go try stuff. And that's the only way you're going to know if you've got it or not. And you will fail. And man, I struggle with failure probably worse than anybody. I'm very internal, and I'm a very emotional guy, and I let things wreck me. I really do. And that deal with the timed event wrecked me. And then my deal is when I get them emotionally, I'm up here in Montana right now. My dad tried to die this weekend, and while I was at the timed events, it was like the greatest, worst thing ever because I got to announce the timed events because Justin McGee got really sick. So it was like, check that off my bucket list and then turn around and fly to Montana because my dad's, fighting with the Grim Reaper. And, you just gotta, I don't know, man, you gotta go do cool stuff, and I don't know, the mortality side of it, fighting this deal with my dad and stuff, if you don't go do cool stuff, you're gonna really wish you did.
Yeah.
You're gonna really wish you did. And you're gonna really wonder, and still to this day, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm sitting at the sports desk, and my life has been blessed for sure. But I'm sitting at the sports desk, and Coleman's doing it at 40, and I'm like, man, what if I got back in shape? Would Dan give me one more shot? Like, what if I'm 45? Like, I think I could do it one time.
Look at Casey
You know,
Jones. I
look at
mean,
Casey Jones, but he's handy. I got the problem where I'm not real handy.
he, he's sure enough more cowboy than a lot of us put together. But
Yeah, but
but people they put a timeline on stuff and an age on things, and it's really in your mind. I mean, Paul Tierney, he did it forever,
yeah,
and not even a big guy. He just
yeah,
has so much try and talent. I would go to his roping schools, and I wasn't a very big guy, so he really helped me with my flanking. Just like
hmm
Paul David, I still don't flank as good as Paul David, but he taught me how to
Paul
table the
David's unreal.
use my left hand and everything else, and
hmm
helped us smaller guys out, so we didn't have to leg or nose everything over, and we could be strong on those bigger calves. And holy cow, the man eaters at the time event finals, oh my god, when Kyle Lockett gets knocked out, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I'm in the stands, thanks. but
I'm telling you, yeah,
but
it's such a special event.
yeah, I mean, they'll never take that preparation away from you, and you got to
hmm
make those relationships with those guys as you
Yep.
prepared. I think the preparation just brings guys together and makes it a brotherhood, and that's why we all love rodeo, is the brotherhood that goes on with it. We all know that it's hard and nothing's ever guaranteed. Your horse and your health is, it's never guaranteed, and so you do it as long as you can because it's in your blood, and you can't think of doing other things. I mean,
That's it.
we joke about it. My wife and I joke about it. Like, yeah, I'd probably have a bass boat, all this stuff or whatever. But just like you said, I'd be wondering, what if this, what if
hmm
that, you know?
hmm
And the power of your mind is everything. That's all you hear nowadays. Is there's so much more focus on the mental game. I mean, you can flat live in a completely different world tomorrow just by changing your mindset. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I guys out there that, we have so much more access to that stuff now, with on the physical side of it, we have so much more access to, roping.com and all the videos out there so we can go learn how to ride and learn how to rope. And then the horsemanship side of it is at our fingertips now, but also the mental side of it. Like, I really, really like the Navy SEAL deal. I think that Navy SEALs are any special operator, not just Navy SEALs, SEALs, Delta, recon guys, in any kind of special forces guys. I have a real affinity for them. And it's not because that they're all jacked. It's because of the mental side of it. And I think that's one thing that's very, very important, that you know, we you need to have a little bit of that. You need to have a little bit of push through it. And like I said, I'm the pot calling the kettle black. I've gained all this weight back, but you got to push through it. But I've also been there and done that a few times too, and know what it feels like to achieve that on the other side. And if people would do that to themselves, it's very, very rewarding. I look at what my buddy Tony Branquino does. This dude's run like 7 miles every single day. It's not the mileage, it's the mental wherewithal to get up and do the miles. It's
Yeah.
not the miles. It's the mental side of it to get up and go do it when your feet hurt, when your knees hurt, when it's cold outside. The dude, when this cold snap just ran through all of us, here a couple weeks ago, he's out there running 7 miles, and my fat ass won't even get off the couch. And I'm like, dude, that's special. And you don't have to, that doesn't mean 7 miles. It could be for like a team roper, like go rope the dummy 50 times, go throw 50 loops on the dummy. I can rope the dummy 100 times in 15 minutes. I've done it numerous times. I've timed it 1,000 times. I can rope the dummy 100 times in 15 minutes. Take 15 minutes and go rope the dummy 50 times, 25 times, and feel it. Go saddle your horse and lope for 15 minutes. Just do something consistently. I saw that deal the other day on Facebook. It showed the motivation chart, and it's like big, then it gets smaller and it gets smaller because your motivation dwindles down. But what really creates success is that little win over and over and over and over and over and over. You don't need to climb Mount Everest today. You just need to take 5 steps. You guys remember my brick by brick stuff? That's when I was doing all that working out with timed events. It was brick by brick. And I still live by that. And when I was running all those miles, it's not 62 miles, it's 1 mile 62 times. And that's how look at it like that. Rope the dummy 25 times. You want to get 1,000 loops? It's not 1,000 loops. It's one loop 1,000 times. That's what makes you better. Lifting, it ain't lifting a ton. It's lifting 135, put plates on and do it 8 times over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm telling this to myself as I'm saying it to you. Like, but it's the truth. And it's the mental side of just making yourself do it and don't overload it. I know you told me that, like, just do the physical therapy. It's not a lot. Just do it.
Right.
Just do it. It's not a lot. Just do it over and over and over again.
And a lot of people, first of all, there's so much in that. I mean, the discipline for one, but for two,
100%.
like with what we do, like we're not trying to do anything crazy or change your whole life unless it needs changing. So I think of a guy like Tyson Durfee who's later in his career. I
Sure.
think it would be so cool to help a guy like Coleman prepare for such an amazing event that is so physically demanding, and help him stay healthy by identifying those little areas of mobility and intrinsic strength that could really make a huge difference down the stretch and keeping your body solid and keeping you out of pain,
Mm-hmm.
the being in shape. Maybe get a different set of eyes on it, and we can help you with that. So, but people don't realize how close they are to achieving those things. They think that you're right. They think that this huge mountain, but they are so much, and in business, you are so much closer than you think
Mm-hmm.
you are if you just don't quit.
Yep.
And
I
if you,
agree 100. I agree 100%. My weight is my demon for sure. I come from a family that fights it. It's a bad deal for my mom. My dad's having all this heart issues and everything, and it's primarily because of weight, and it's my heart of steel. And like I look at it, right, I mean, you just said, so like for me, I look at my mountain as 50 pounds. To get back down to 170, 180, I got to lose 45, 50 pounds again. I've already been down there, and I look at it and I'm like, God damn it, now I have to do this again. The truth of it is, if I would cut back, just I don't change my diet a lot, but just enough. And then for me, a 4 mile run now is not that tough. I mean, it's harder than it was, but I could go run 4 miles today. And 4 miles is easy. So just go run 4 miles and then do a little, take 45 minutes, go run 4 miles and eat healthy and just stay hooked. And in 120 days, I'm back to right where I want to be. but I look at it like it's 50 pounds and it's like, oh, it's not. And I mean, it's my biggest weakness is looking at it like I gotta lose. Like, man, I need to. This is what goes on in my mind. I need to do a 5 day fast. I need to reset my body and my mind. No, you don't, bro. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just need to go do this incremental. Just get some incremental wins. And then next week it'll be easier. And then next week it'll be easier. And then next week it'll be easier. And stop looking at the scale every day and just be disciplined and not huge discipline, just disciplined enough. And then in 120 days, I'd be back down to about 180 and I'd feel great, you know. But God dang, it's hard to do,
It
you
is.
know.
Just the consistency of it, and then, all the other stuff about what's in our food and how do you eat when you're on the road and you have a busy lifestyle and
Oh
stress,
boy.
cortisol
Yeah.
levels, all that stuff. I mean, they all take a huge effect on those things. And you're right. You just gotta start and you
You
gotta
just got to start. Yeah.
little wins and all that stuff. And I love helping people that are later in their careers. That's like we've had some 7-year-old barrel racers that have completely changed their riding around and don't have knee pain and hip pain and back pain and all this stuff and turned it around pretty quick. And what I love seeing is just how their posture in the saddle changes to where it almost becomes a trademark of our work and how they just look so much more comfortable and correct in the saddle to where they can help their horse more. And
Mhm.
I don't know. That's why I truly love doing this, and it's why it's my true passion.
Well, I'm sure excited for you, Destry. I really am. I think that's awesome. And when you can find your passion and of helping people and giving back, that's where it really that's what it's all about. That's where I've been fortunate in my deal. The sports desk that I do those interviews, they're not for me. They're my goal when I do those sports desk interviews is to make Ketch Kelton and his family feel like the champions that they are. And the winners of the number 8 finale and the number 7 finale, they're never going to be on ESPN. This is their one shot at, they just won a couple $100,000 is going to change their life. I've interviewed guys that didn't have enough money to get home after the event. And if we can give that if I don't my gift or whatever of being able to do that stuff on the sports desk is for the people. It's for the people, and that's what I'm there. And this is what you're doing too. And when you can do that, when your gift can give back to people, that's when it's really special. And that's when it really means something. And guys should never forget about that. It's not about the paycheck. It's not about any of that stuff. If we can luck out and make a living doing it, we're just that much luckier than the next guy. But when you can give back and like you say, you get to see your work out there and I get to talk to these guys that say how much it meant to be on the sports desk. That's not about me. It's not about you. It's about giving them something that can change their life or make them happier or whatever it is. And that's the whole psychology. That's a whole other conversation, but that's why we should do this stuff.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, we've talked about on the podcast before about what is your NFR, basically. That's what everybody relates to. And the fact of the matter is we're not all gonna make the NFR as
Hmm.
period. But what if I worked sports medicine and got to be behind the yellow shoots, or, just
Yeah.
like the time event deal, you got to announce the time event deal and have people at the sports desk and promote them. But you're also doing more than that. You're promoting the Western industry and helping it grow as well. And that's what you're doing as you do this. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, man, I'm awful proud of you. I'm glad you're doing this stuff. And it's cool. Yeah. And going back, like we haven't talked about any of this stuff. Any of it. We haven't talked about any of this stuff. We hadn't talked in, I don't know, 6, 8 months probably,
I
you
know it.
know?
It's just
So,
awesome how stuff works in your life, and I'm a true believer in all that stuff of the spirit helping you and putting people in your life for a reason. And man, I sure appreciate you agreeing to do this and coming on here and sharing your story and talking through stuff with us. I mean, it's just so awesome that all the things that you said line up with our mission as well. So
well, that's pretty cool. You know, God has a funny way of putting good people, together for sure. And I think this is great what you're doing. I absolutely love what you're doing. And man, I think if there's any way I can help you with any of the guys I know or whatever, just let me know. I mean, I know we know a lot of the same people, but if there's anything I can do, I think what you guys are doing is awesome. I truly believe that the industry needs the health and wellness side of it. I mean, so just food, just little tidbit of information. Most of the sponsors that we're getting at the World Series and USTRC are health and wellness companies, which tells me that there's a market for it.
Yeah.
Now, all of those, that's on 90% of that's on the supplement side. Everybody and their dog has a new supplement. But that's also telling me that people are, if those businesses are in business and able to sponsor, that means they're making money. And that means that people are purchasing these products. And that means that people are looking for ways to, and I'm talking not just supplements for horses, I'm talking human supplements. People
Right.
are really looking at this stuff more than they ever have before, you know. And this generation that's coming up, like now that I'm in my 40s, we grew up with supplements. We grew up with creatine. We grew up with all of this stuff. So we know about it too. So we want to use stuff that makes us feel better, So I think the health and wellness market is a prime place. And the biggest thing for you guys, man, help these guys and gals with their flexibility and their strength so that they can rope better and ride better. I mean, who wouldn't? It's a great thing you're doing.
Exactly. And our whole goal, that's why, Becky and I collaborate, is because she is a horse physical therapist as well. And so on our exercise app, we have horse programs and people programs on our app. So it's something that, was a huge goal of mine to do, and it's already being done. And so I'm just so excited about that side of it too. And, the end goal, possibly having a horse and people recovery center under one roof someday. Um, I just think could help so many people. So we're going to continue to work towards that as well.
Cool. What is your app?
It is the Pivot Point Equine app, and it's off of my PT Hub. We have our website pivotpointequine.com, and I'll send
Okay.
that. Follow us on social media, and you can message us, get on our schedule. We also have the rider performance, or the rider membership, where you can pay $30 a month and you'll have access to a library of workouts and stretching routines for you and your horse. So if you're, somebody who's maybe not sure and wanting to check it out, or you just, want to be able to do different stuff all the time, and don't have either the time or the money to do a personal eval, which we highly recommend just because it's, again, a straight line. But we have that out there for people as well. So
Awesome. Awesome. I'm super proud of you, man. It's great. It's good stuff. I'll help you any way I can for sure. I love it.
just right. Well, thank you for coming on here, sir. And again, Dru Stew, true legend. Followed him for a long time. Man, it's just such an honor to have you on here, and I truly appreciate it.
You betcha, Destiny. Well, thank you. It means a whole lot for you to say those things. I'm definitely not a legend. I'm just a dude that loves team roping. So
Same.
thanks, pal. I appreciate it.
So, all right, well, I'll close it out. And as always, let your health be the pivot point to your success.